I want to welcome you to Dream Chasers Radio with me, your host, Yaya Diamond. What's up, peoples? It's late night with Yaya Diamond. I'm loving this. I'm loving this new name. I'm loving this whole little new thing I got going on. You guys are going to be amazed with what we're going to be doing this year in 2022. You don't want to go anywhere because we have an amazing author on the show. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. And it just seems to be one of those things that we're talking a lot about lately. I'll be right back. Don't you go anywhere. Welcome back to the show. So you can get us on all the platforms. There, I said it. Follow, like, subscribe, comment. Done. All right. I want to just really get into this interview because I'm so excited about this. I'm supposed to have him on next week, but we kind of got him in today because this is what I want to do. So, Mr. Martin Ettington, I'm gonna torture your last name. How do you pronounce it?
Martin Ettington.
I was gonna say that.
Well, thank you, Yaya. I'm excited to be here with you. Thanks very much.
The pleasure is mine. The pleasure is mine. So tell me about yourself and how did you know you were going to be an author?
Well, first I should mention I'm a retired engineer. I spent most of my career working for large companies like HP, Boeing, Northrop Grumman. And in college, when I was starting engineering school, I also had a mentor who was a blind clairvoyant physicist. And he taught me about meditation and opening my chakras, and I started to have lots of paranormal experiences. So in my whole life, I've had kind of like two parallel tracks, my traditional career track and my track about metaphysics and the paranormal and learning about spirituality. So in, I'd say 2008, I was interested in writing a book. I felt I'd learned a lot and I wanted to try and give back stuff. So the topic that really interested me were articles about people who supposedly had lived way over the age of 100, articles all over the world. Mm-hmm. And just as a point of reference, the Guinness Book of World Records says the oldest person to ever lived was Jean Calumet of France, who lived to 122. Wow. But I found people all over the world who'd lived in the 140s, 150s, 160s, even a very famous story about a Chinaman named Lai Ching-Young, documented in the New York Times in the 1930s, who lived to 256 years old, if you can believe that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and he spent his first 100 years as a herbalist. He had like 23 wives over his life.
Oh,
and he
wow.
met the Emperor of China. So I got all these records from all over the world, and I thought, wow, this seems pretty credible. People really do live to incredible ages. So I wrote my first book on this topic called Physical Immortality, History and How-To Guide, trying to find different information about spiritual aspects, psychological aspects, diet, and lots of different things as to how people could live longer. Mm-hmm. And this evolved over several years because I wrote numerous books on longevity. Probably my most important one is called the 10 Principles of Personal Longevity. Mm-hmm. And I lay out 10 principles of how people can learn to lengthen their life by decades. And not to go into all of it, but basically, it starts with the idea that real long-lived people they really do exist. And the second principle is you have to have a purpose in your life. And it goes on to different principles, everything to do with diet and spirituality. What would you think is the most important factor for people improving their longevity?
Happiness?
Well, it's close, but I would say it's that they have some type of spiritual connection. Whether it's a religion, whether it's Christianity or Islam or whatever, and that seems to bring a aura of health down into their bodies. All these things are important, but I found spirituality is something all these very long-lived people seem to have some type of spiritual connection in their lives. So I wrote a lot of books on that topic, and I branched out to other topics. And one of the first I branched out to was the paranormal, because I've had a lot of premonitional or prophecy experiences in my life. And as an engineer, I like to think that I can give a different slant coming from the analytical to a lot of these very subjective phenomena. Mm-hmm. So shall I tell you a couple of my stories?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll tell you about my first one and then the most important one I had years later. So back in I think it was 1976, I was working in General Electric's gas turbine engineering in Schenectady, New York as a summer job. I was still in college. And they let me meditate at my desk. You know, I was this weird college kid, so they let me do that. And it was getting near the end of the summer. I was planning to go out to Cape Cod, which is out in Massachusetts. And I was thinking about what I would do in Cape Cod. And I started thinking about surfing. And all of a sudden, I had this brilliant vision. And it was of me falling off a surfboard, going under the water, coming up, and bam, the surfboard hit me in the chin. And I got thrown out of my meditation. I thought, oh my God, that's really strange. Understand, this is a year or two after I'd started doing meditation and learning spiritual development. So a couple of weeks later, I'm out walking in Cape Cod and I see these guys with several surfboards. And I said, hey, where can I rent one? They said, oh, you can try with us. So I spent the whole day trying to get up. And I have to tell you, even though I'm a skier, I was not very good at learning to surf. And I was getting really exhausted. So about 2 or 3 in the afternoon, the same exact scene happens. I fall off the board. I go under, I come up, bam, it hits me in the chin, almost knocks me out. I have a bloody chin. I have to take me to the hospital. I have 10 stitches and 2 sutures. So that was my first real experience of something that happened that I actually saw the exact same vision. So that taught me these things are real.
Yeah.
So I had numerous visions over the years. Let's go to 1998. In the summer of 1998, I was married with a teenage stepdaughter and a 2-year-old son. And I was living here in California. And we were going to take a trip to visit my wife's parents who lived in Barcelona, Spain. But I was waiting for a contract. I was hoping to get a contract with Boeing, which I later got, but I was waiting and talking to the headhunter, and it seemed like I should stay there, try and get the contract, and then follow them out there, okay? So they went, and about several days later, the contractor guy said, look, Martin, nothing's going to happen here for a few weeks. So you might as well go. So I thought, okay. So I tried to call on the phone to talk to the travel agent. And I only was able to touch the phone, and I got a really dark black feeling. And I should mention that in the previous several years, I felt like I was going to die soon for some reason. So I tried again later that day, and I touched the phone. And again, I got this really dark feeling of death. I thought, oh my God, what is this? So I waited till the next day. The next morning, I thought I'd try one more time. I pick up the phone. It's an effort of will. And I get the same awful feeling that if I go on this trip, I'm going to die. And I thought, what the hell? So I lay down and meditated. And I meditated. The day I was going to leave was September 3rd. And I felt that there was going to be a plane crash. And I felt really sure about it. So I decided not to go. And as soon as I decided that, I felt a lot of peace in my life.
Oh my gosh.
It was very difficult to do that because I had a lot of momentum about wanting to be there and having fun with my family. So it was a probable future that I would have taken. And it was really difficult for me not to do it. If I hadn't had the experiences I'd had with previous premonitions,
right,
I wouldn't have believed this because I still felt pretty stupid in making this decision. I felt really stupid. Why would I do this? Why would I give up a great trip? But I had this premonition. I had to believe it. So come September 3rd, the day I would have gone, the flight I could have been on, a Swiss Air flight, crashes into the ocean off Newfoundland and kills a couple hundred people. It's like that movie where there's these movies about people avoiding a plane crash, but this was real.
Oh my God.
I really feel I avoided. I can't prove it, but I really feel I avoided dying in a plane crash.
Wow.
So it's having a lot of training in physics and engineering. I felt this taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about time, that there are probable futures and that you can learn to take a different future if you really work at it, but it's not easy.
Right.
And this gets into and I wrote a lot more books about the paranormal and my experiences and exercises for people to do this. But it also got me interested in the subjects of is time travel possible? Is dimensional travel possible? So I have a whole category of books I wrote on that topic, like people's experiences with time travel. And there are people who seem to have gone through portals in time to the past, or people's experiences with dimensional shifts. And there are persons who have claimed that they've gone through dimensional shifts. And from my training and everything I knew, I wouldn't have believed this type of thing before. But since I did the research on all this, I do now believe that we live in a very malleable universe. It's not as stable as we think. And that there are time portals and dimensional portals. Maybe it's the same thing that you can go through to actually visit different places.
Wow.
So these experiences of mine, I've tried to leverage them with my experience in the paranormal and my scientific and background to be more analytical on the things I write about.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. You have over 100 books, or you have 100 books?
Over 100. I haven't done a count lately. It's probably more like 130 or 140 if I count compilations. But
Oh my gosh.
it's been since I've gotten out of engineering, it's been my main passion the last 14 years. Like last year, I think I wrote like 23 books, and most of them were originally self-published, but I got a publisher last year, and she's done like 8 of my books. But I'll be honest, in today's world, unless you have a really big publisher, I think doing your own marketing helps you a lot. So I tend to want to keep doing self-publishing now. I have a really cool website. I have each thing organized by category, and then you go into a category, see the list of books. Then you can go into an individual book page where you can see a video about the book, an explanation of what it's about, the table of contents, and then the options to purchase it, whether it's an ebook, a printed book, or audiobook. And I try and have all of those options for each of my books.
Oh my goodness.
So it's a full-time thing for me,
Yeah.
and I enjoy doing it. I really love writing, and I love being able to write books which are out of the box topics that a lot of
Uh-huh.
people consider impossible, because I learn a lot in my research on those topics. Like, I'll give you an example if I might.
Yeah.
So one of the things I started doing was I wrote on a category of books I call uh, what do you call it? Legendary animals. Another way to put it is a term, cryptozoology. Have you ever heard that?
No.
Cryptozoology is a term for Bigfoot or dragon sightings or things like that. And so now I've written a series of books on these things. And one of the things that really made me curious was when I started doing my research on Bigfoot, I found a map that showed Bigfoot sightings all over the country, all over the continent rather, in different times. And there's actually thousands of sightings, literally thousands of reports of people who met Bigfoot. And you start to say to yourself, if so many people have seen Bigfoot, why haven't we recovered any bones? Why haven't we found their homes? That type of thing, right?
Right.
And another part of my research on the paranormal has to do with something called the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which is a 2,000-year-old book in Sanskrit. And one of the 4 books talks about spiritual abilities or paranormal abilities developed as you spiritually evolve. And I know I'm going all over the place, but the reason I mention that is one of the abilities I recently read about is the ability to see different realities. So parallel realities seem to be part of that, an ability you can learn. So if people can have that ability, why can't animals? So here's my theory. My theory is that a lot of these strange cryptozoological animals may actually originate or live in another dimension, and that they come here, they can cross dimensions through their own spiritual abilities. And so that's, something new to think about.
You got
Anyway,
me.
what?
You got me.
Yeah.
You got me. Wow.
Covering a whole nother area. I
Uh-huh.
like ancient history.
Okay.
And some years ago, I watched some videos about Atlantis and whether Atlantis might be in what's called the Richat structure in Africa, which is in Western Africa. And I researched it and wrote a book on it. I became very convinced about this. It's called The Real Atlantis in the Richat structure. And this led me to write other books about ancient history, because it's become really fascinating to me that the history of humanity, the history of civilization goes back much further than we could think is possible.
Yeah.
So now there's a category of objects that are found, another term called out of place artifacts. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, out of place artifacts.
Uh, Maybe.
People find things like hammers and stone that have to be millions of years old,
Right.
or mortar and pestle found in stone or coal,
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of objects. So I wrote several books on that topic, And I recently wrote one that's kind of a compilation of all that. I call the Encyclopedia of Out of Place Artifacts. And I found it's amazing. There are artifacts, some thousands of years old, some millions of years old, way before man existed, that seem to have been made by intelligent beings. So you ask yourself, if it wasn't man, because the ancestry of man only goes back a couple million years maximum.
Mhm.
But these things we're talking about might be 50 million years old or several 100 million years old, found in coal seams. How is that possible? And this is because my research into aliens and UFOs, which I've written books about, leads me to think that those aliens lived on Earth millions of years ago in our history, and may have even been connected to the idea of giants living on Earth.
Wow.
So maybe it was those beings that live here that created all these things. In fact, I look for patterns in what I write about. And I know I'm jumping a lot of subjects, but
Mhm.
within the OOPA realm, I found that there were a lot of objects. I found 10 or 12 that were all created in around 300 million years ago.
Uh-huh.
A lot of them found in
Mhm.
coal seams. And so it says to me, there was likely a civilization on Earth 300 million years ago, and we don't have any records of it except these objects that have been found. And so that's a whole subject I wrote a book about, and it's included in my encyclopedia of OOPAs.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
You
where
see,
do you find, I gotta stop you. Where do you find the time to do so many books in just a year? I mean, there's so many people that take a year to write maybe one or two books, but
right,
you're like writing so many different books and you're branching them off like subdivisions, right? So it's like
right.
you might write about one subject of this, and then there are different subjects that go with that. So it coincides with this, which is a
Yeah, that's
branch
a
off.
really good
I mean,
question.
my
I'll
gosh.
I'll tell you what I do is I work on it a little bit every day. I don't really take a vacation. I just love writing. So like I'll go to my favorite coffee shop and I'll work for an hour or two, and that's enough. I don't want to get overtired. And if I come up with an idea, I have a whole directory in my computer, which is just called probable or future books, and I'll write down some points about the topic and reference later. So I keep a whole directory of potential books I might write. And then when I get to writing a book, people always talk about the idea of writer's block. I don't believe in that. I
Mhm.
think if there's a topic you're interested in, you outline it, you see if you can get enough information to make it a worthwhile book. And I usually consider about 80 to 100 pages as a minimum book, and maximum can, of course, be hundreds of pages. But I outline each book, and then I start filling it in when I'm writing it. And I usually work on mainly on one book at a time, but I might flip between a couple of them depending on my interest.
Mhm.
So, like right now, I'm starting a book on hope because I think people need hope in their lives, especially in all the controversy and everything that's going on
Yes.
these days. And that
Yes.
one I'm going to take a lot of time on. I'm going to take a month or two on that because I want to make it right. I want to include a lot of quotes, a lot of spiritual aspects. I buy a couple of books on the subject of hope to see what other people have written. So this is my approach to research a topic, to understand what other people say, what other articles there are relevant, and then I put it all together and I
Wow.
try and come up with something coherent. So to me, it's a passion of mine, which I
Uh-huh.
just really enjoy doing. Because it covers a lot of subjects, and I really feel now with all the books that I've researched and written, and plus my experiences, that I see connections between these topics. And even though there are a lot of out of the box topics, and that's kind of what I specialize in, out of the box topics, is that a lot of them are related together. And the more you understand, the more you realize what you don't know. And I will tell you, if I'm the first person to say there's a lot I just don't know.
I hear you. I'm the second person.
So
Goodness gracious. Wow. I mean, Marty, that is amazing. Over 120 books, I'm gonna say, just like a whole over you. I
mhm.
mean, you're not keeping count anymore, right? I mean, literally. And you do how many a year at least?
Well, last year I think I did about 23, and I'm not going to say they're all as great as somebody who spends 2 years writing or 3 years writing a single book,
Hmm.
but I try and make them adequate. I try and make them interesting to people. Basically, I only write about topics which interest me. I
Okay.
figure if it interests me, it's going to interest other people. So I write things on living in space, about moon bases
Mm,
and living in space colonies. I write about survival because I have a lot of experience as an Eagle Scout, as a Boy Scout. So I've
mhm,
written a lot of books about how you can survive in the wild because I had experiences of living in igloos, and I've actually fought a bear on the Appalachian Trail. So I put a lot of my experiences into these stories too. And I think I've covered pretty much all my experiences. One of the strange experiences I had, and this is under my topic of spirituality,
uh-huh.
was and this is going to sound strange, but I've actually documented a lot of people who had the same experiences. I remember choosing my parents, being inside my mother's womb, being born, and my life since then. And so I go through that in this topic about uh, light, being born, and living before you are
Oh
actually
my God.
born. So there's a lot of interesting things in our lives, and a lot of people try and ignore it because they try and fit their minds into the accepted regions, the accepted areas that society says you should. They don't want to be called crazy, but I don't care. I know I'm
Yeah.
not crazy. I know I'm fairly innovative and insightful, and that's why I like to write. I hope it'll give people an insight into their lives, an insight to the world that we live in, and that they'll just find it interesting.
Wow. Wow, Marty, my gosh, you remember all, man, I'm telling you, I think my first memory was at 6 months, and from then on, I can remember. Most people kind of go, "What?" But I do have a memory from 6 months on. But before that, I don't know. Maybe I do, and I don't know it's my memory. I
I
mean,
think it's
could it
because
be?
people are not supposed to remember that, so they don't. But I can tell you, being born is a very uncomfortable experience. I did not enjoy it at all.
I can imagine. It's just being trapped in there, and then yeah, that's very claustrophobic. I mean,
Mm.
yeah, but
So,
oh my gosh, wow. Wow, that amazing, Marty. So, I mean, what can we expect? What is your latest book? And I mean, when can we expect the next one?
well, like I say, I'm working on one on hope, but I think that's going to take a while.
Hmm.
The latest one I actually published today is about the multiverse, time and dimensions, questions and answers. So I try and get into all the topic of time and other dimensions and how they relate together and what some common questions and answers might be about that.
Wow.
And
Yeah, that's a big one.
yeah, let me mention my website.
Yes,
It's
please.
mkettingtonbooks.com, spelled MKETTINGTONBOOKS.com. And then you'll come to the homepage and you'll see a lot of category buttons. And you choose a category, you see the books within it, and then pick a cover and you go see the detail page on each book.
Wow.
So that's what I do, and that's my passion, and that's the new career I'm building for myself. Thank you.
That is whew, that is amazing. Amazing. I give
Thank
you
you.
props, man. I give you props. I mean, yay. I mean, that is just to me, that is just something that, you are like on a roll. You're on a roll.
Yes,
I don't
thank
know
you.
who can catch up, but you're on a roll. And definitely, we're going to definitely have all of that information in the description box for you guys so that you can actually, go check it out for yourself as well as on the screen so that you can go and check it out if you're watching on TV. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. You know, you say, Marty, that there is no reason for anyone to have writer's block. What kind of suggestions do you give a person when they find that okay, they got writer's block and they don't know why?
Well, that's a good question. I think I would say, first of all, you need to write about the topic you're passionate about. Because if you're excited about it, you're going to make other people excited. But secondly, I believe strongly in the outline method. Try and come up with your chapter titles ahead of time. I've actually even got a book on how to write and market your own books. But try to come up with the chapters ahead of time. And even you may put a little one line description in the chapter of what it's supposed to be about. And then all you do is you're just filling in chapters. You're
Mm,
just, whether it's research or fiction, I've written fiction, which I think takes more work than nonfiction,
mhm.
but you're just filling it in. And then you fill it in and you look at it, you say, does it make sense? oh, I'm going to move this chapter here. I'm going to move this chapter down here. I'm going to add a little bit here. And pretty soon, you don't know, you don't realize it, but you've created the book.
Mm, that is so cool. Wow. You're right. I mean, it's simple. It's much more simpler than we make it out to be.
Yeah, people have too much fear of the unknown, including writing.
Yeah, especially writing, because you feel like as if, I mean, I'm going to talk for myself. I feel like as if I don't know enough grammatical things to understand that there is an error there,
I think
and I get scared.
I think everybody has at least one book inside them.
I think so too.
So
I think so too. And I think, Marty, I think you have more than the average person inside of you. You keep writing, man. I'll tell you one thing. I appreciate you being on the show today.
well, thank you. It's my mission. I appreciate very much being here, Yaya.
And it's my pleasure. And I hope to see the book Hope really soon.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to go ahead and go to that website. We're going to be putting that on the screen as well as in the description box below wherever you're watching. Please don't forget to go and check out the website and like and subscribe and comment below. I am sure that Marty would love to answer any questions you may have, and I am sure he has enough material to do that. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. And Marty, again, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks very much. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. And until next time, guys, don't forget to dare to be different. Bye. I dare to be different. I dare.